Yes.
Public hearing will come to order. First item we have on public hearing is TP Ordinance 2147, an ordinance placing 15-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and drive like your kids live here sign on Cassidy Lane in District 10. Anyone to speak on that item? The next item is TP Ordinance 2148, an ordinance repealing to recodify current code sections regarding shooting ranges, mining operations, auto impounds, salvage and recycling facilities, halfway houses, and juvenile detention centers, and renewable energy, amending Chapter 17. Anyone to speak on that item? All right, the next item is TP Ordinance 2149, an ordinance to amend Chapter 17, Planning and Development, adding Section 9.6, Renewable Energy Regulations regarding solar power plants. I have several that have turned in slips to speak. I'm going to call them up in the order that they turned them in. I just want to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes to speak. And I'd ask that you not just repeat what you've said at the previous meetings. So if that's what you're going to get up and speak about, I would ask you to consider not speaking again. The first one is Mr. Norman Alcazan.
It's going to be short and sweet. I have prepared a list of points to consider, but after looking at the turnout tonight and some of the feedback I've gotten, I shortened it considerably, so if you'll bear with me. I'm an American Legion Post 109 member. That's Independence, Louisiana. We believe we have a duty and responsibility to speak and to act on behalf of other U.S. Armed Service members in harm's way. I wear orange tonight, not as a fashion statement, but as a reminder of the harm done by herbicides to veterans and survivors then and now. Like I did last time, I'll raise my hand. I am unfortunately a victim of that and my family. Like I said, I'm short and sweet. What I have here is a letter from the President of the United States. It's dated August 2010. But I truly believe that this should be read by every armed service veteran, and it would be nice for the citizens of the United States also to see this. For some reason, I don't know why, it never made it that far. I'm going to read 3 sentences, and then unless you have questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And again, I thank you for allowing me to speak. He thanks me for writing. I appreciate hearing from you. When Americans answer the call of duty to serve in our armed forces, a sacred trust is forged. Our men and women who have served in the uniform of the United States of America risk their lives to protect our freedoms. Beginning at enlistment, we must do everything in our power to support and provide them with the benefits they have earned. Please keep that benefits what they have earned in your mind for a moment. Our nation's first president understood this obligation, as I do, to be a debt of honor. Now, this did not come from the current president or the one before, but from Mr. Obama. Like I said, this was a 2010 letter. As a minimum, clean air to breathe and pure water is a benefit I feel we earned, not given, but we earned. And when I say we, I'm speaking of the armed service members and women, men and women that went to Vietnam and now are having to, we fought the communists and now we fight the diseases, unfortunately, related to the herbicides. That is my pet peeve is this project. I have no problem with solar panels, wind power, water power, whatever. My problem is with herbicides, and it's personal, as I've already explained to you. It affects more than just the veteran. Our children to the 4th generation, science says, are affected by this diseases, and God knows where it'll all end.
Mr.
Like I said,
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Okay.
If you read the ordinance, we are not allowing herbicides to be used. That is in the ordinance.
And I read also the permit language, which caused me concern. It appeared to be ambiguous and also misleading in regards to what they could and could not do at these solar farms. And I will tell you here and now, even though the permit hasn't been issued, the creek behind my home has already been sprayed with herbicides in advance of the construction if the permit is issued. And I have turned this over to a Louisiana agency in regards to testing the water and also the wells surrounding this. And this tributary of the Tangipahoa runs down, rather this tributary called Shapapila runs all the way to the Tangipahoa and possibly could affect a lot of wells along the way. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Where did you get that information from?
What is that?
About it's being sprayed prior to this?
Because the gentleman that was here last Monday, who is a retired brigadier general from the National Guard, told you that. He witnessed it. He checked it out.
I didn't hear him say that.
Okay.
And as far as I know, I don't think anybody else, Chapilla Creek, where you live, there is no spraying going on up there.
It's already gone on. It's already happened.
I don't think you're correct on that. I think you need to look at that because that goes back to what we talked about the other day. The parish would be the one to spray that. If the parish didn't do it, the state would have done it and the parish would have been notified. Joe, have you been notified of any of that? Okay. I just want to make sure because it goes back to that. If we don't have facts, we shouldn't be up here saying things like that. And I don't remember the general saying that Chapilla Creek had been sprayed. His concern was the same concern you have, that if this project is sprayed, that it will go into a creek that runs through by his house. But he did not say it was sprayed. So I just want to clarify that. Before we say things, let's have our facts straight.
I agree with you.
Okay?
And this week when the investigation commences, this is USDA who's going to be doing the investigation. We will find out.
You will find out. But you're going to find out also that none of that's been sprayed. Because if they don't do that, they don't come in a parish and spray that without notification to somebody.
Okay, one last comment. The people who own that property where the creek begins, I spoke to them for probably a half hour, and they confirmed that it had been sprayed by helicopter for the purposes of killing the hardwood, the young hardwoods that were along that creek. That was the purpose of it. There was overspray that went onto the general's property and killed one of the trees on his place. He didn't tell you that either, but he did tell me. You can take it for what it's worth. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and God help us if we won't end up in the condition that I am in.
Next, Ian Rice.
Thank you. I have a prepared statement. My name is Ian Rice. I'm a project director at Nexar Energy Resources. Nexar Energy Resources is an all-of-the-above energy company. We have a diverse portfolio of assets that includes active investments in the Haynesville Shale. We are the owner and operator of nearly 15% of the nation's solar capacity, and we are excited to bring homegrown solar energy to Louisiana. We appreciate the efforts that the Parish Council, and in particular the Planning and Development Committee, has put into drafting this solar ordinance, as well as the opportunity to participate in these public meetings. As we've said before, it is our belief that a well-sited solar project would provide significant benefits to the parish, including the potential for millions of dollars in additional property taxes, which can be used to enhance schools, roads, and essential services. Our proposed project will be sited in an area that will be shielded from public view by existing mature trees. It's currently sited on a commercial timber site. We are grateful to have had the opportunity to be heard in this process, and we look forward to working with the parish and with its residents to develop solar energy and to establish ourselves as good neighbors for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Sure.
So, it's correct that you guys have your interconnection agreement?
That is correct.
Do you have your PPP? How do you say that?
Power purchase agreement. There's no power purchase agreement that we could announce today.
Just curious. I was just curious how far you have come since the last couple of meetings.
We would consider this to be a very well-advanced project within the state of Louisiana. We're bullish on the project.
Thank you.
Can you divulge the site? Is it
Yes.
north end of the parish?
It's in the northwestern end of the parish, near the St. Helena parish line, near 10 and 55.
And how big a tract?
1,200 acres, give or take, when it's all said and done.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Mr. Patrick Hughes?
Good evening. What is the status of 2149?
I'm sorry?
The status of 2149, what's its phase, condition, stage?
We'll be
How
voting our final vote tonight to approve.
It's what?
We'll be having our final vote tonight to approve it.
This is the final approval?
Well, during our council meeting, yes, sir. The council
Council
meeting will
meeting,
start when
okay.
this public hearing ends.
How do I get a copy of 2148?
2148 or 2149?
48, I got 49. 48 is the noise.
I can have that email to you if you put your email address on here.
Yeah, it's on there.
Yes, sir. We'll get that email to you tomorrow.
Okay. I may be retro, but I have a vision of a parish that's peaceful, pastoral, pacific, precious, and preserved. We don't need to turn it into an industrial wasteland in 10 or 20 years, and that's what I see. If you haven't seen solar panels and solar farms, I put a big stack of them outside on the wash table. Please take one and show them to people who don't know what we're talking about and don't know what's happening. I, for one, found my community had no idea what was going on, and I haven't found anybody in favor of it yet. You know, as I do, I worked for nuclear energy for 17 years in Riverbend and Grand Gulf. And I can tell you very truthfully, solar power will never replace fossil fuel and nuclear power. It's a profit-making farce between millionaires and government subsidies, and they had a big meeting about it last month, from politicians receiving handsome donations. Electric cars are a cruel scam. The power required to recharge millions of them can only come from fossil and nuclear fuels. The first one was in 1835, and it rapidly deteriorated and disintegrated because of the refueling issues and stations required to do it. It's in a movie, which I just saw last month, and it's pretty cute, but it's a fad, and it will go the route of most other fads. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes. Next, we have Mr. Wayne Hughes.
Good evening. Appreciate being here today. I'm going to say, I talked to y'all a lot of times about the potential loss and absolute loss of property values, particularly for those who will be joining these solar plants. And some of you guys have kind of paid attention, but a lot of y'all haven't, to our concerns. Y'all kind of want, I guess y'all wish we'd kind of go away and leave y'all alone, because my councilman himself was involved in this thing for a long time before he never notified us. And that kind of stuff concerns me from a political standpoint, that we're not, the people, unless you come here or unless you really pay attention, these kind of things can go on and we never have an idea. And I'm disappointed in my councilman.
I found out about the same time you did.
I found out about it about 3 months ago. And when I talked to you about it, you knew already. I can't tell you exactly when you knew. But I'm just disappointed that you didn't stand up for us the people who are adjacent to it and in the neighborhood of this plant. We face a real loss of property value. That's real. Do you want money to come out of your pocket for loss of value of your place? Would you want something stuck in next to you? We have regulations for dirt pits, for junkyards, for apartments, even parks. But yet, nobody wants a regulation for a solar plant because it's green. It's not really green. It has a negative impact on those around it. It's established. You can go on the internet and find anything you want to find. But one thing they do talk about is setbacks. Setbacks. If you're going to do it, setback. You hide the darn thing. Where they're building this one up in North, that's a great place to build one, in my estimation. Off out in the woods somewhere. It's in nobody's vision. It's not, people come if they're interested in the area. They probably don't even know it's there if they're interested in buying. But we have people who have come up, bought property, built houses, and they're going to be sitting right next to this thing. And they're going to be looking at a 19 to 20% loss of value in their property. What do you say to those folks? The elections coming up will say something about that, I believe. When people find out that our councilmen are more interested in, there's nothing wrong with a man making the money from his farm. I have no problem with that. But when his idea and what he wants to do negatively impacts me, then I've got something to say about it. And I should be concerned about it, because if I'm not, I'm being negligent to myself and to my neighbors. And this is a neighborhood thing. And I ain't got a big problem with solar. I don't think it's going to be the end-all, be-all that they like to make it out. I think something will come along that will be better than that. But this green, it's not that. The green is this, the money.
All right.
That's the only green there is.
Your time's up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, last we have Mr. Hank Schumacher.
My name is Hank Schumacher. I live on 445. This gentleman that just spoke, I wanted to speak right after he spoke. He spoke last time and said he lived on Pine Hill, and he was a veteran. I'm a veteran. I spent 9 years in the Air Force doing Vietnam. Okay? I did my duty. A lot of fellas did their duty. But you can't come back here and cry about it afterwards. You got paid. You did what you wanted to do. My self-esteem, my life is great because I served in the service. And I know a lot of men that have. But my question is, you know where I live. He lives on Pine Hill. Right behind him, the creek is mine. It has not been sprayed. It has not been sprayed. My pastures haven't been sprayed like a lot of the dairymen did, and I understand that. I don't use chemicals. I use my cows to take care of my grass, my weeds. No, whatever that man had to say, it wasn't true. And I wish he was still here, because I know he built a pond on the backside of my property that drains his creek, so-called, caused the creek on my property. That's fine. That's his property. He can do what he wants with it. But all he said was not true. That's all I got to say.
Mr. Schumacher, I want to thank you for that, because that clears my point. There's been all kind of accusations made with no evidence of any of it.
No.
I sat here the other night and listened to the general. I never heard the general say that.
No, he was talking about his daughters is what he was worried about.
That's right. So all that is to instill fear in someone that It has no bearing whatsoever. And you see, when you question someone about it, if it's fact, you're gonna say, well, I got it from here and this is where you can find it.
Well, he left.
Yeah.
He left.
I want to thank you for standing up, because you didn't have to do that, but I'm glad you did.
That's just like excuse me, sir, but that's just like your property values. How many people wanted to get rid of the dairy farms that stunk so bad? Oh, I want them to go, I don't know why they got that, Katrina hit down there. Everybody and their brother from Chalmette moved up to the North Shore. How long did they stay? Not long. 'Cause when that wife found out she couldn't go to the Time Saver, or she had to drive to a meet, which was 15 minutes away, to get something to eat or buy something, I'm going back to Chalmette, I'm going back to the parish. Well, go ahead. If you lost money, that's your business. Why those dairy farmers are selling out the subdivisions? Because they don't have anything else to sell. They worked their whole life, built up that land, bought more land, their daddy, and they bought more land because they were trying to get a retirement. That's their retirement, selling to those subdivisions. I'm not selling to a subdivision. And like I told them once before, I have not sold my land to the solar panels. They tell you don't worry about your neighbors. My land is 187 acres.
Okay, Mr. Schumacher, your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. I leased half of it, and I kept the rest. I'll be right in front of those solar panels.
Okay, if anyone else wants to speak, I'm gonna need you to turn your form in now. This is gonna be the last one. Henry?
Well, it's been a journey. We've learned a lot. We reached out to the Secretary of Economic Development, Mr. Don Pearson. He wasn't able to make it. But he did speak last week at the Ponchatoula Chamber of Commerce. Anyway, he made some good points. He spoke about how solar will not burden the parish. It's all positive. It won't impact the roads, it won't impact the schools, law enforcement, or fire department. And he just said it was would be a good neighbor, good addition to the parish. So that's the head guy from the state saying that. So it should have a little weight with everything. So anyway, that was it. But also we've been hearing from everybody, and we haven't heard from or know who some of the landowners are. So the landowners, stand up, please. So these are some of the people. There's about 26 of us total, and these are some of them. So anyway, thank y'all.
Thank you. Yes, sir, of course.
These boil down to a property like this. We have two property rights, the ones that have the property that want to lease, and the person living next door to. I think that's why this committee, I think did a good job. It's worked on regulating. And I think the regulations they're putting in place will serve both parties. Is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect. But I think we're addressing the landowner that has the property and the landowner that's living next door. And I think they've done a good job, they found a happy medium, and I'm going to support the solar panel.
Thank you, Mr. David. All right, our next item is 2150. This is an ordinance placing a no truck route signs and weight limit signs on the bridge on North Hoover Road in District 9. Anyone to speak on that item? 2151, an ordinance to grant a variance to Tangipahoa Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17 for Otis Betts Jr. at 44336 Zeno Lane in Hammond in District 8. And the last one is 2152, an ordinance to grant a variance to TP Ordinance Chapter 17, 5.2 and 5.3 for MGD Deluxe LLC. This is in District 6. All right, if there's no other public comment, we'll move into our Tangipahoa Parish Council regular meeting for June 26, 2021. We're going to have invocation by Mr. Joseph, and Mr. VL will lead us in the pledge.
Stand, please. Those able to head bowed. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the blessings we received, our health, our strength, our peace of mind, our families, and our friends. We ask that you bless this council, give the leadership the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding to do all those things that are pleasing in your sight. We ask that you bless those who put themselves in harm's way so that we may enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy today, such as our military personnel, police officers, first responders, healthcare workers, all those people who run toward chaos and not away from it. And Lord, as we leave this place, remember your grace, back to safe travels back to our various homes and our homes. And we will be sure to give you all the honor, all the glory, and all the praise. And all the saints within the sound of my voice shall sign by saying,
Amen.
We take the flag and all active military policemen and proper salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Dover, would you take roll, please?
Mr. Forrest. Mr. Ingraffia.
Here.
Mr. Joseph. Mr. Bruno.
Here.
Mr. Ridgel.
Here.
Mr. Mayhew. Mr. Wells.
Here.
Mr. Vial.
Here.
Ms. Hodge.
Here.
Ms. Coates.
If you have cell phones, please mute them or turn them off at this time. I hope everyone had a chance to look over the minutes that were emailed to you from the July 12th meeting. If there are no changes or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
I so move, Madam Chair.
A motion by Mr. Wells. Second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ingraffia.
Yeah.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno. Mr. Ridgel. Mr. Mayhew.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hodge.
Yes.
Ms. Coates. Mr. Forrest.
All right. Public input. Is there anyone wishing to address an agenda item that was not on public hearing? Okay. Next, we'll have our parish president's report.
Good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon. Come on. Y'all wake up. It's going to be short tonight. We got approval of bids on the Tangipahoa Parish Courthouse here in Amite to replace all the, retacked all the marble stones at the top. The low bidder was Apex Waterproofing of Louisiana, $383,175. So we seek approval.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Bruno. Roll call, please.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno. Mr. Ridgel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hodge.
Yes.
Ms. Coates. Mr. Forrest. Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
And last, the financial reports, they should have been emailed to you, so you should have those. Barring that, I'm set. Barring any questions.
What's that?
Barring any questions, I am set.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. All right, moving into regular business. Our first item is adoption of TP Ordinance 2147, an ordinance placing 15-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and drive like your kids live here signs on Cassidy Lane in District 10.
I'll second.
A motion by Ms. Coates, second by Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Ridgel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vial.
Yes.
Ms. Hodge.
Yes.
Ms. Coates. Mr. Forrest. Mr. Ingraffia.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
The next one is adoption of TP Ordinance 2148, an ordinance repealing to codify current code sections regarding shooting ranges, mining operations, auto impounds, salvage and recycling facilities, halfway houses, juvenile detention centers and renewable energy, and amending Chapter 17 with special provisions regarding the same items.
Bridget, before you move on that last one, on the written copy of the speed limit, is it 15 or 25?
That's 15.
Yeah,
She's
15.
got it. She's got
Two
two.
different ones.
Yeah, well, this written one has 25 on it.
Yeah, so it needs to be adjusted to 15 in both places on that ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need to?
I think all you gotta do is just let Ron
put it
make
in
a
the minutes?
notation to, it would be 15, and then change the ordinance paper.
Okay.
So 15 is correct, not 25.
You intended 15, correct? Ken?
15.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bruno, thank you for catching that.
Well, that was our turn.
Okay. That's what we're paying for. When this was introduced last week, there was a little, I guess, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but there was some opposition to this ordinance, and I was asked to state that when we approve this, that we make a change in there that says that the planning commission has to use our current codes, which is unspoken, but we just want it to be worded in there. So we will be looking at this ordinance at our regulation committee meeting on Wednesday and coming back with an amendment for that. So
What is the amendment then?
that the planning commission has to follow our current codes, current ordinances, which is, I mean, it's unspoken, but we're going to word it in the ordinance.
I know we talked about that, Bridget, but I'm still going to ask the question. If they're only going to look at it, but they can't change anything in it, what is the reason for the additional step? If the council is ultimately going to approve the permit, it has to come here for a public hearing, and the council has to approve it. What is the purpose of somebody having to go down there and raise all kind of cane, but they can't do anything with it?
Well, because most of them are businesses too, so if they're a business, they gotta go to the planning commission, don't they?
No, not these. Right now, these don't have to, these specials, all of these come before the council to get an approval.
Well, I know at the end, you don't ultimately work on it.
But if we pass this, even if we do the amendment, and I did talk to you about that amendment, then I thought about it, the amendment's still gonna be, they cannot do anything. So you're gonna get a group of irate people go down there. They're gonna raise cane, but they can't change anything in it. It's gonna ultimately have to come back here and get approved or disapproved.
So you're saying it should come here?
That's how it's always been. It's always come here on these special need things. And all you would be doing is adding the solar farms or any other energy. And if in the future any come, they would come to the council and get a public hearing and get a vote. You would just cut that step out.
Because they're not the final approval authority.
No.
We are.
I mean, they can't change anything in it anyway.
Gotcha.
We're the elected officials, we're the ones that
Right, yeah.
are responsible. They're in planning board. If I'm not mistaken, is let's change that language, we'll take it out, where it makes that run to the planning commission.
Well, Carlos got an amendment later on in there that would cover that.
I mean, I just think you,
Well, why don't you bring it to the committee, let the committee look at it, and then we can address it that way, and then we'll amend it.
Joy, I don't see
You
what
make a good point, you make
Huh?
a good point.
Well,
I
I mean, I don't know what it would, if that's the case, you're just gonna vote both of these down and start over again.
the
Where,
reason this ordinance was introduced was just to make everyone have to follow the same set of rules, where you don't have,
they do.
I mean, we could actually vote
They really
vote for
didn't.
both of these ordinances tonight. Go ahead and approve this and approve your amendment of it.
Right.
And just amend it.
Where you
to
can't
make-
amend it now, buddy, because it's up for adoption.
Right, you have to,
I'm talking about the one that you're gonna be introducing later.
there'll be an introduction, yes, later.
I can still come back and we go through it.
And then 2 weeks, we have to come back.
Yeah.
Without that language in there.
I don't know.
Well, the only thing before us right now is that the way it reads. I mean, other things that could just suggested. But what's before the council is what she just read, not the additional.
Right.
And that's what we'll be voting on.
Okay, let's go.
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Ridgel,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ridgel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
No.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
No.
Mr. Joseph? Mr. Bruno?
5-4. All right, motion fails. Next is adoption of TP Ordinance 2149, an ordinance to amend Chapter 17, Planning and Development, adding Section 9.6, Renewable Energy Regulations regarding solar plants.
Wasn't it 5-4?
Need 6.
But Trent's not here.
It doesn't matter.
Gotta have 6 votes.
We could go on the majority. I'll leave it alone.
I have some documentation here, I hope that if there's a question, if there is a question, I'm here to do it.
No, you didn't hear the question.
Took place
I made it
last
wrong.
year, the minutes show that there was a 5-4 vote that failed.
It's in section 2-11 of the Home Charter.
It said, what does it say?
Section 2-11 of the Home Charter has to be a majority of the qualified members of the council, which means the entire.
All right. We have an ordinance on the floor.
So moved.
Which one are we on?
2149.
Have a motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Ridgel?
Yes.
All right, adoption of TP Ordinance 2150, an ordinance placing no truck route signs and weight limit signs at the bridge on North Hoover Road in District 9.
So
Someone
moved.
would make that for me,
So moved.
Mr. Bruno.
I second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bruno, second by Mr. Joseph. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno? Mr. Ridgel?
Adoption of TP Ordinance 2151, an ordinance to grant variances to Tangipahoa Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17, for Otis Betts Jr. at 44336 Zeno Lane in Hammond in District 8.
I so move.
I second.
A motion by Mr. Vial, second by Mr. Joseph. Roll call, please.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates? Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Ridgel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Next is adoption of TP Ordinance 2152, an ordinance to grant variances to TP Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17, 5.2 and 5.3 for MGD Deluxe LLC at assessment parcel number 4498208 in District 6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Mr. Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
One question, what is MGD Deluxe? What is that?
Joey.
That's the property owner's name.
What?
It's the property owner's name.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Ridgel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
All right. Next is introduction of TP Ordinance 2146. This is providing for the levy of taxes for the year of 2021.
I'll so move, Madam Chair.
All right. I have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Ms. Coates. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Ridgel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes. Next is introduction of TP ordinance 2153, an ordinance placing 10-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and drive like your kids live here in South Ridge subdivision. That's in my district, if someone would make that motion.
They're gonna be pushing the car, I'm good.
It's a very short road, they don't go faster than 10. Did you second? All right. Have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Ridgell? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Introduction of TP ordinance 2154, an ordinance placing 35-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Baytown Hill Road, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Johnson Holton Road, and 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Company Town Road in District 1. Trent's not here, if somebody would make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ingraffia, second by Mr. Bruno. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Ridgell? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
All right, the next one is introduction of TP ordinance 2155, an ordinance to revise and amend TP ordinance 2148. 2148 failed, so I think this needs to be tabled.
To the table, till we get to the committee, and figure out what you want, how you want to write it up.
Well,
You can put 2148A.
I really think this needs to come back to the committee. This ordinance was from a committee, and, no
Well,
disrespect
you
to
can't table an ordinance that a councilman puts on there. If the councilman that puts it on there is the only one who table it.
No,
I
that's
put it on there, so I at least deserve a vote.
Madam Chairman, I move that we table.
Right, have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Ms. Coates,
I want you to look at that.
that this motion be tabled.
Bring it to the committee, that way we can.
Let's vote. We got a motion and a second. Let's vote.
And then we'll, okay,
Let's vote.
okay.
Roll call, please.
There's one sentence taken out of the whole thing.
Well,
That's all it is.
I'm not sure what it is. That's
Well,
why-
it's
nobody
right there in
talked
front of
to
you.
me about it.
No disrespect to you,
It's
but you
okay.
asked to not be on any.
I just want y'all to remember that y'all are tabling an item that a
Madam
councilman put on
Chairman, we
there.
ask for a vote.
There it is. So he's gonna be the
We ask
one
for a
next
vote,
that's
Madam
gonna get
Chairman.
it. Let's go.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno?
No.
Mr. Ridgell?
No.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes,
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
No.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates? Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
No.
Mr. Joseph?
No.
Now I'll make a motion to introduce.
I'll second.
And then I'm gonna say something else.
But just for the record, under the approval process, the only thing being changed, the words then forwarded to the planning commission for public hearing is being taken out.
Mr. David, this originally came from a committee.
Yeah,
and
That has nothing to do with anything.
Madam Chair.
A committee is a recommendation.
Madam Chair, do I have the floor?
Yes, sir.
Number 2, it takes out the planning commission will hold a public hearing and recommendation followed with the technical parish council. Instead, we just follow the process of the public hearing of the parish council and then we're back to the TOS. It's just taking out the travel to the planning commission. Okay.
I so moved.
We have a motion to introduce by Mr. Bruno, second by Mr. Joseph. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ridgell?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew? Mr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
No.
Ms. Coates? Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
5-4, motion fails.
Wait,
Passes.
I don't think so.
Why does
Yes,
that
it
pass
does.
without 6 votes?
This has to be 6.
You got 5. Sorry.
Yeah, it has to be 6.
5-4.
And that's what you told me a few minutes ago. It failed.
Okay.
This will be brought,
Yes, sir, that's right.
I would like for you to come to the meeting Wednesday.
No, I want to get something straight before I come back to the meeting. The last meeting I came to, I was asked to leave. I want a clarification, because if a subcommittee is posted, any councilman can sit in at that meeting, he could raise his hand, he can ask a question. I was told that we didn't think y'all should be here. I left. I didn't argue the point. But that kind of stuff never takes place. That was the first time in all my years here that I was ever asked to leave a committee. And I left. But this kind of stuff right here, this is the second round with this. So
This should be brought to the committee, that's what the
no, it
committee's
don't.
for.
Not to make a change like that, Jordan.
Any kind of change.
No, it doesn't.
Bring it to the committee.
The committee's not the all-be of everything. There's other councilmen that would like to put some input on these things.
And it's not that you disagree, I disagree with you about what you want, but you can't bring
Well,
it to the floor, you should bring it.
I'm good with it now because-
They're the ones who wrote the ordinance.
I'm good with it now, because right now, it's back to the original. Right now, it happens, you have no ordinance. You had a chance to have one, but you have none, so we go back to the way we always did. So just remember that, because of that one line. And thank you, Mr. Richter, for voting for
Well,
that.
I agree with you. I don't think it should be going to the plan.
No.
Bridget, I would like to address, Mr. Bruno, you were at the committee meeting that we held, and actually the committee followed the recommendation from the administration. Yes, sir, that was the committee meeting we held here, and you were sitting right over there.
Yeah, and I raised my hand, and you wouldn't even recognize me.
No, you put your hand down.
Yeah, well, because you didn't recognize me.
Wait a minute, let me interject. I was at a meeting, and I was told, Mr. Dial, you don't need to interject on this time. I was sitting there, and that's what I was told. I didn't want to argue the point. I was the attorney to ask.
I mean, y'all got this train on the road. Nobody else is supposed to say anything. But I'm gonna say what I gotta say, and this is still the same thing of putting this in the hands of unelected people to turn it down and then bring the headache to this council. If I've got to vote on it, I want it brought here from the beginning. And I was told on the deal for the cabinet shop that the reason they voted it down was they were just tired of voting yes for everything. That, we could have wound up in court with that, because you turning it down because you just don't like, because you can't say that you don't want it. It goes back to the same thing. If people meet all the rules, if all the rules are met, and we draw up the rules, and they jump through hoops to pass these rules, you can't stop it. If it meets the regulations, you've got to give the people their permits. And all this is another way to try to delay people from building. If you don't want people to build, why don't you just say it? You don't want no more development. That's what this is all about. If you don't want no more development, let's pass an ordinance that there'll be no more development. But quit trying to beat around the bush and go around the tree.
Okay, we need to move on. TP Ordinance 2156 is an ordinance placing 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Brumfield Road from Lewiston Road to the dead end. This is in District 1 also. If someone would make that motion for Trent.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ingraffia, second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yeah.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2157, an ordinance placing no truck route signs in Della Casa subdivision in District 2.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Ingraffia, second by Mr. Joseph. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yeah.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Introduction of TP Ordinance 2158, an ordinance granting a variance to TP Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17, Section 17-5.2, Item 4, spacing of manufactured homes for Ms. Johnson at 40143 Macedonia Road in District 10.
I'll second Madam Chairman.
A motion by Ms. Coates, second by Mr. Wells. Roll call, please.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno? Mr. Richtel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Item 16, adoption of TP Resolution R2113, a resolution approving the 2021 through 2023 priority list of off-system bridge rehabilitation and replacement program.
Joe, do you know anything about this?
Did-
I do not, Russell. What it is, every 2 years we get federal money to replace some of our bridges that are in disrepair, excuse me. So this is what this is. This is saying basically we get money to replace these 3 bridges for,
You had some new bridges come up.
I'm sorry?
You had some new bridges come up.
Well, what it is, these are in a, I guess the bridge rating is a little bit lower on these. So in order to make it better, a better replacement, they're going to replace the timber bridges, we like to slab plants.
And it's something that we do each year.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I so move, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Item 17 is adoption of TP Resolution 2114, a resolution authorizing the continued employment of special counsel in connection with the creation of multiple economic development districts. This is just a resolution that we continue to retain special counsel in setting up these economic development districts.
I think special counsel here.
Did anyone?
So moved.
Good. I'll say.
Motion by Mr. Mayhew, second by Mr. VL. Roll call, please.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
All right, and the last one, well, not the last one, number 18 is adoption of TP Resolution 2115, a resolution authorizing the publication of a notice of intent to levy a 2% sales tax and a 2% hotel occupancy tax in Tangipahoa Economic Development District Number 8. This is just going to be put in place in the event that a hotel would come into that economic development district.
Also,
Second.
Who seconded that? Mr. Mayhew. All right, I have a roll call, motion by Mr. VL, second by Mr. Mayhew. Roll call, please.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Vial?
yes.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, the Budget Committee met prior to our meeting, as we always do, and we had a recommendation coming from the judges that their employees be included in the parish retirement insurance. So I would like to add that to the agenda.
Okay.
And if you want, and Jeff here, he can make it.
We apologize that this is having to be added. We received this request Thursday, and I emailed it to y'all, and just want to make everybody aware of it.
Does anybody have any questions?
What is this now, Judge, the secretary for the judge?
All of the judges' employees, I think y'all need to add it before we,
Yeah, then with
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I have a motion by Mr. Wells,
Yeah.
second by
Yes,
Mr. VL, that we add this to the agenda. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Forrest? Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Richtel?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew? Mr. Wells?
yes.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Okay. As you know, parish employees can participate in the insurance retirement program, so after they retire, they can keep the insurance. The court reporters for the judges were kind of they're parish employees paid by us, but they weren't actually parish employees because they were supervised by the judges. The judges voted on, I think that was last Wednesday night, to add to request for all of their employees, including the court reporters, to be part of that program. So they would come in, you should have a sheet of paper on the back. They will begin paying for their employees the 4% contribution that we're making for all of our employees, as well as the court reporters. So we're recommending allowing them to come in and participate, but we thought the council needed to.
I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'll say.
Motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mr. PL. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yeah.
Mr. Vial?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes. All right, motion passes. Beer, wine, and liquor permits, we have none. Legal matters, none. Councilman's privileges,
I have one.
go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I'm gonna stand up and do mine. I'll take care of it. It'll be very, very serious. I think it's the responsibility of the government to, as best as we can, educate those people that we represent. And I'm gonna hold up this paper today to show y'all what I'm talking about. Y'all see this? This is what Louisiana is different right now, across the nation. It says, in more active, Louisiana surged into the worst outbreak in the United States, COVID-19. And the government is doing all they can to get us in line, to do whatever we have to do to stop the spread. A lot of people just don't want to participate, but I know for a fact that North Oaks had to open up an additional ICU ward to accommodate the number of coronavirus patients that they receive. Not bad with General Levy. Not doing any emergency surgery right now for 2 weeks in Baton Rouge because of the outbreak. So I'm asking all of you, if you have not been vaccinated, to please consider getting vaccinated. 95% of the people who go into the hospital and they were not vaccinated passed away. Those who go to the hospital and were vaccinated recovered. As I told my church member Sunday, we all are better than that. Louisiana is better than that. We lead the nation of all the states. We're the cities. And there's a reason for that. So I'll hold it up again and let you see we've got to do that. Joe, I'm going to ask you to ask Robbie to please consider requiring all the people who come into a governmental building to wear a mask. Would you do that? Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, what is the percentage rate that has and hasn't done in the state? Do we have an idea?
That has had a shot?
Sure.
That has got it and has not got it? So 40%?
39 something.
Has got it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. And, look, I mean, this is not just nationwide. You know what I mean? It's a crisis, people.
And look, what Joe Lewis is saying, you know, people say, well, people that's got the shot are getting it. But the ones that have the shots are getting a way milder case than these people. So it may not keep you from getting it, but you'll have hopefully a lesser degree of sickness because you have it. So I know my brother today, he was diagnosed with it. He got his shots in March. So he's got it, but he's just got mild symptoms, just flu-like symptoms. So it's very important. And Louis, you're absolutely correct. I know you've been a big advocate for it, but I mean, man, people get out there and get vaccinated. It may not be the end of everything, but it may make a big dent.
Yes.
Also, really where a lot of the younger generation is getting.
Yes. And I think the LSU is about to mandate that all students have to wear. But one more thing, you know, sports drives a lot in this country, and I love sports. And I watch what they do. Big age. I started with college, and the NCAA, last year, if the team could not play because of COVID, they postponed the game and played it later. This year, if you can't play a game, you forfeit. Same thing is true with the pros. If a team is infected with COVID and they can't play, you don't postpone it, you lose that game, you forfeit. And if you're a player with COVID and you were not tested, I mean, you would have to take the shot, they were fining $14,000. They're serious, folks. That's all I have.
Just want to remind everybody, we have a fire board meeting after.
I'd like to say something. So I'd like to thank St. Margaret's Youth Group. We had close to 20 volunteers this past Saturday cleaning our paint shack. So it was the youth group from their church that came, so kids from all different high schools and stuff came down and participated. I don't have all the totals and stuff yet, but it was a really great day. I need to thank Don Bates and Nathan Ferris for coming down and helping, organizing and teaching the kids and showing them kind of what they do and how they sort and track the litter and things like that. And so it was a really good educational and service day for those kids. So again, we're trying to promote and try to get that younger generation to notice and really help us combat that environmental problem with children and stuff. So I just want to give them a shout out and say thank you.
And Madam Chairman, I'd just like to ask one question of you, for all the council members, and when we speak or seeking permission to speak, if you would acknowledge you at the floor in some kind of way, I think it'll keep us from speaking over each other.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and keep on.
If there's nothing else, Mr. Wells, I'll entertain your motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Yes, sir.